Hello dear viewers, this is Andre Bailey, and this is the premiere of a new story on the Alien Relatives channel. Where's my beard, dimmer? Why does everything in this house always seem to be moving somewhere? Ilya stood in the middle of the hallway, wearing only a sock, arms outstretched as if trying to hug an invisible refrigerator. His complaint hung in the air, colliding with Darya's ironclad composure. She was just zipping up her autumn boots, balancing on one leg. Your trimmer isn't the drawer under the sink, exactly where you threw it 3 days ago, next to the toothpaste, Dasha replied, straightening up and adjusting the collar of her jacket. And anyway, stop yelling. Neighbors, you'll wake us up. Ilya snorted, disappeared into the bathroom, rattling the plastic trays there, and Amenil emerged infinitely holding the buzzing device. Found. Listen, I'll be late today, he said casually, running the clipper across his cheekbone. Marinka needs help putting together her closet. She ordered a fancy walk-in closet. It was custom-made. The girls out partying. Dasha froze. The car keys she'd just been tossing in her hand clattered onto the ottoman. What walk-in closet? She said slowly. Your sister Marina, whose financial literacy is equivalent to a hamster's ability to comprehend quantum physics, ordered furniture us. How did she get the money? Debt collectors have been calling her for 2 months now because of migratos and a credit card. Ilya smirked, blowing the hairs off his blade. That same smug superiority flashed in his gaze, the one that made Darius vita kazistas den fiducish. She paid off all her debts the day before yesterday, both the microloans and the gold credit card. I'm telling you, the woman's on a winning streak. That's it, I'm off to shave. Don't stand there. The bathroom door slammed shut. Dasha stood in the hallway. The gears in her brain started churning. Marina hadn't worked for a year and a half, having quit her job at a mobile phone store because of a toxic team. Her only stable income came from plaintive sighs into the phone and occasional laparapish requests from relatives for food. And then suddenly, there were the paid-off loans and designer furniture. Dasha left the apartment, forcibly turning the key in the lock twice. The entrance hall smelled of damp plaster and cat hair. She descended the steps, got into old but polished hatchback and gripped the steering wheel tightly. She needed to get to work, but her thoughts were already plotting a completely different route. Doria worked as an administrator at a private dental clinic. A peculiar place. On the one hand, there were the constant complaints of patients about prices. On the other, a constant stream of gossip from the doctors. Isha controlled this chaos like a conductor at an orchestra, where all the instruments are slightly out of tune. Upon entering the clinic, she was immediately immersed in a familiar symphony. The hum of germicidal lamps, the smell of eugenol, and the cheerful chatter of Larissa, the receptionist. Even there, the 5th patient is complaining again about their shoe covers tearing. Larissa blurted out, immediately adjusting her badge. Give them 2 pairs. Let them stack one on top of the other, like nesting dolls. Doria replied automatically, turning on her work computer. Laris, I have an unusual question for you. You are expert in banking matters after that divorce with the division of property. If someone with bad credit and zero income suddenly pays off about $400,000 in debt at once, then orders cabinets for several hundred more, where does the money come from? Kate. Muka. Larissa looked at her as if she were a child asking a stupid question. She found a fool to pay for her either with an inheritance or by selling a kidney. But then she'd still be in intensive care. So what? Just a friend of mine who's performing miracles. Dasha turned back to the monitor, pretending to check Dr. Ignatiev's schedule. Her secret fund, her personal financial bulletproof vest, was kept at home. 750,000 rubles in 5,000 bills. Dasha had been saving for 6 months, putting aside bonuses, part-time jobs, and the sale of her grandmother's garage. This money was earmarked for the down payment on a small commercial space for the floristry studio she dreamed of owning. Dasha didn't recognize her bank accounts after bailiffs mistakenly debited someone else's fine from her and took 8 months to return it. Her cash was in an old tin of an Indian elephant tea, which in turn was hidden on the very top shelf of the kitchen cabinet behind a huge, rarely used pressure cooker. The spot was perfect. Ilya never looked at that shelf, considering kitchen utensils are mutuso vedum strictly off-limits area. Dasha skipped coffee during her lunch break. She dialed her mother-in-law. Zinaida Pavlovna was a stern woman, as Nrukachech, and completely devoid of maternal blindness. She knew her daughter Marina's worth well and harbored no lucidity. Zeta Pavlovna, hello. I'm not bothering you. Dasha parked near the park, not far from work, drumming her fingers on the dashboard. Dasha, hello. You're certainly bothering me. I'm replanting the ficus plants here, knee-deep in mud. But if you're calling during the day, something must have happened. Did Ilya forget to pay the utilities again? It's even worse for Marina. They say she's paid off her loans and is ordering walk-in closets. Did you happen to win the lottery in secret? The phone rang with the sound of a plastic pot falling to the floor and a heavy sigh. What lottery, Dasha? I'm retired. Marina called yesterday, chattering about her new life. I asked her point blank, who did you rob, Dragonfly? She giggled and said, there are good people in the world. I honestly thought she'd managed to woo some deputy. But who needs her with her demands? If it was Ilya who gave her the money, I'll give him a hard time with this ficus tree. He's the one with the mortgage. Got it, Zenita Pavlovna, thank you. I'll call back this evening. Dasha hung up the phone. The pieces of the puzzle fell into place to form a disgusting yet crystal clear picture. Ilya couldn't have taken out such a loan without her knowledge. His salary, card, strictly controlled, and for a large sum, the bank required his wife's consent. He simply didn't have that much of his own spare cash. Clenching her jaw, Dasha started the engine. There were 4 hours left in her shift. She had worked them with the efficiency of a soulless cyborg. Patients received perfect checks. Doctors had precise schedules. Larissa responded icily to any attempts at conversation. At 7 p.m., Dasha opened the door to her apartment. The house smelled of pizza. Ilya was sitting on the couch in the living room. An open box of pepperoni lay on the table in front of him, and soccer figures flickered on the TV. Oh, she's here. He casually waved a slice of miso at her. I decided to stop by Marina's tomorrow. The assembly technician didn't have time today. Are you hungry? Dasha didn't take off her jacket. She walked straight into the kitchen, stood on a sturdy stool, pushed aside the heavy, dusty sakovok type of saga cooker, and slid aside the bags of dried apples. Her hand brushed the cold tin of an Indian tea can. The can was light, too light. Dasha removed it and opened the lid. Inside, a lonely 3-year-old warranty card for a blender lay. Not a single bill. Emptiness. She stepped down from the stool and placed the can on the counter. Dasha didn't check the other shelves, didn't look for signs of forced entry. She knew exactly what had happened. She entered the living room. Ilya was enthusiastically chewing a pizza crust, staring at the screen. Ilya. Dasha's voice was quiet, but it clanged with such a metallic sound that her husband instinctively ducked his head and turned down the volume on the remote. What? He tried to feign casualness, but his darting gaze gave him away. Dasha stood in front of the TV, blocking his view. Okay, I don't understand how your sister paid off her loans and ordered cabinets if she doesn't work or mook. Ilya stopped chewing. His face twisted in fear for a second, but then a dull, masculine frown tinged with cowardice took over. He leaned back on the sofa and grinned crookedly. And you go check your stash. A pause hung in the room like a heavy stone block. The box is empty, Ilya, Dasha stated without blinking. Well, that's right. We're family, Dasha. His sister was seriously threatened by debt collectors. She was starting to get depressed. Did you think you could cheat the family out of money and no one would know? As the head of the family, I've decided to redistribute the budget to those who need it most now. Marina promised to pay him back in installments once she got a job. Dasha didn't throw plates at him. She didn't shout that it was her personal savings. She wasn't about to argue with a man whose logic was as flexible as boiled macaroni. She simply pulled out her cell phone and dialed a single number. Katya? Dasha looked straight into Ilya's shifty eyes. Yes, it's me. Are you home? Great. Come over, Katyuka. I can't handle this alone. Yes, here. She hung up, pocketed the phone, and walked into the hallway. Who are you calling? You're crazy, Katya. Ilya jumped up from the couch. His feigned confidence was beginning to crack at the seams. Dasha, what are you doing? Let's talk normally. I got a receipt from Marina. Dasha leaned her back against the front door, folded her arms, and silently looked at her husband. Her older sister, Katya, was a woman of the elements. If the bulldozer had a passport and a residence permit, its name would be Ekaterina Nikolaevna. She owned a small auto repair shop on the outskirts of town, could curse so hard that the movers would blush and take notes, and had the tenacity. And except. Exactly 17 minutes later, there was a knock on the door. Dasha unlocked it. Katya stood there in an open leather jacket and heavy work boots. She smelled of machine oil and determination. "So tell me, who are we burying?" Katya asked in a deep voice, pushing Dasha aside with her shoulder and entering the apartment. "This wonderful person." Dasha nodded toward poor Ilya, who was pressed back against the living room door frame. "He took $750,000 from my hiding place in the kitchen and gave it to his unemployed sister, Marina, so she could pay off the loans and order furniture." Katya slowly took off her jacket, hung it on the hook, and turned to face Ilya. The difference in size was irrelevant. Katya radiated such a primal menace that Ilya, half a head taller, seemed like a school and like a second front of the principal. "Ilyusha," Katya said tenderly, like a boa constrictor to a rabbit, "you must have taken a wrong turn somewhere in the evolutionary chain," and he hit his head. "Forward, put your shoes on." "Where to?" Ilya squeaked, taking a step back. "I'm not." "You have no right." "Dasha, calm your sister down." Instead of answering, Katya stepped forward, grabbed Ilya by the collar of his t-shirt with one hand and with the other, snatched his jeans from the hanger and threw them in his face. "You'll argue your case in court, Anikrinov," Katya barked. "Get dressed and go. We're going to visit your sister to return the stolen goods. If you start acting up now, I'll wrap you in a rug right here in the hallway and carry you out like construction debris. Time's up." Ilya, fumbling with his shoe, pulled on his jeans. Dasha silently grabbed her keys and bag and got out first. They piled into Ka's vast, gasoline-scented SUV. They put Ilya in the back seat and locked the door. On the way, Dasha made another call. "Zinaida Pavlovna, this is Dasha. Are you ready to personally beat Ilya with a ficus tree along his ridge?" "Great. We're going to Marina's. I'll order you a taxi to her house. Meet at the entrance." The SUV roared, tearing through the night streets. Ilya tried to say something in the back seat about filing a police report for the kidnapping, but Katya simply turned up the heavy rock radio. Pull. Cutting him off from the outside world. They arrived at Marina's apartment building half an hour later. The apartment belonged to Marina herself. Her ex-daddy had abandoned it and then died suddenly of a heart attack, so the young woman certainly wasn't left of besiers. Zinaida Pavlovna was already standing at the entrance. Luckily for Ilya, she wasn't holding a ficus tree, but a heavy leather bag filled with who knows what, but looking like a serious proletarian weapon. "Mom." Ilya jumped out of the car the moment the doors unlocked and ran to his mother for protection. "Mom, tell them they've completely lost their minds." Zinaida Pavlovna looked at her son as if she were seeing him for the first time, and she categorically didn't like him. Without a word, she swung her bag and slammed it into Ilya's shoulder with a dull thud. He gasped and recoiled. The mother-in-law ejected a gentle sir. "Drag your wife's money. Feed your seed your sister parasites. Let's go upstairs and try to yelp. I'll throw you down the stairs." The procession of four and the entrance. Dasha walked first, scanning the space. There was no anger or resentment in her, on the harsh pragmatism of a predator out hunting for its prey. The doorbell of Marina's apartment rang out with a ringing trill. There was shuffling behind the door, then a disgruntled voice. Ilyusha, did you forget your keys? I asked the furniture assembler to send them tomorrow. I put a mask on my face. The lock clicked. The door opened slightly. Marina, wearing silk pajamas and with her face shiny from some expensive serum, stared in confusion at the crowd of relatives. Katya didn't wait for an invitation. She pushed the door open with a strong shoulder, sent Marina flying into the hallway in her fluffy slippers. The audit has arrived, Katya grunted, stepping inside. Lucia stepped over the threshold after her. Ilya was pushed in by his mother, who entered last and closed the door tightly. Marina backed against the wall, clutching her hands to her chest. What are you doing, Dasha? Huh? Are you completely nuts barging in on me like that? I'll call the police right now. Call them? Dasha replied calmly, walking to the center of the spacious apartment. And at the same time explained to the police how an unemployed woman with her $400,000 in debt, $1 they stood on $2 in debt yesterday and ordered a walk-in closet and boxes, which have already taken up half your apartment. Dasha's gaze swept around the room, but Akada. Indeed, large branded boxes with labels on the cabinets and interior units were piled against the wall, still unpacked. Nearby stood a brand new chest of drawers, a glass coffee table, and 2 armchairs. Too expensive for a man who yesterday was whining to his family about food. Ilyusha paid for this for me. Marina turned a panicked glance at her brother. He said he had a big bonus and wanted to get his sister out of trouble. Ilyusha, just tell them. Ilya opened his mouth, but Zinaida Pavlovna sternly poked him in the ribs. He's got a bonus, his mother hissed. He scraped it out of Dasha's saucepan. Juvenile thief. Marina's expression changed. The spoiled princess mask instantly fell away, revealing a petty, dodgy nature. I don't care where he got it from. He brought it himself. I transferred the debts to the banks. Whatever you can do for me. Dasha walked over to the boxes, squatted down, studied the store labels, and ran her palm over the tape. Okay, Marina, I'm $750,000 missing. $400 went to your loans. The other $350, they're all over the apartment. So we'll do it very simply now. The cabinets in the boxes are going back to the store while they're still in good condition and unassembled. Besides, we'll now see what valuable appliances you have, and that's going with us too. And I'm calling a gazelle. But Katya just barked. But stop. And she sank to the floor. Katya, hold the door, Dasha said calmly. And you, Ilya, since you're such a generous benefactor, will be the loader. He took the first box and carried it downstairs. He leaned on it like a wardrobe that had acquired something. You, Katya barked, or I'll help you now, so much that you'll carry it along with the door frame. Ilya jerked back, but Zinaida Pavlovna stepped right up to him. You picked up someone else's money. Now pick up the boxes too, quickly. Ilya silently picked up the first heavy box with the wardrobe. He was bent over from the effort. Katya threw the door open, and he stumbled, dragging his purchase down the stairs. Marina started to freak out. "You're burglars! This is my apartment. You have no right to boss me around. The apartment is yours," Dasha nodded, "and the furniture was bought with my money. Do you feel the difference?" She was already opening the next box, checking for completeness and receipts. The papers were indeed lying on top, in a plastic file. "Excellent. We'll process the return without any fuss. Katya, this set goes down too. Take the dresser and the table. Take the plasma TV off the wall too." "Dasha, really? That's too much," Ilya whined, returning for the second box. "The cabinets, okay. But why touch the furniture and appliances?" He didn't have time to finish. Katya, without turning around, poked him in the chest with her finger, so much so that he almost sat back down on the floor. "You're a miracle of genetics. Just shut up and carry it. Your voice has no veto power in this house." Dasha slowly glanced around the room. "After returning the cabinets, the amount won't be fully covered, so we'll sell the rest. The dresser, the table, the chairs, the plasma TV. You wanted a beautiful new life? Well, you'll start it with a stool and a feeling of guilt." For the next 40 minutes, the apartment buzzed like a plundered warehouse. Ilya, sweating red, carried boxes of cabinets downstairs under Katya's supervision. Then it was the turn of the dresser, the table, and a large TV. Marina first screamed, then sobbed, then simply sat on the edge of the bed watching with glassy eyes as the suddenly compressed well-being flowed out of her apartment at someone else's hands. When the hallway became empty, Dasha turned around. The room looked as if all the shiny new fat had been pulled out. All that remained was the base on which a woman accustomed to costing others too much was expected to live. "Everything is ready," Dasha stated. Then she looked at her husband. Ilya took the last package and went downstairs. "And don't even think about the aggrieved party." He looked at her with completely empty eyes and silently jerked the rest of the packages to the door. Dasha turned and walked towards the exit. Katya followed her, trudging heavily, carrying another box like a war trophy. Zinaida Pavlovna was the last to leave. She paused in the doorway, looked at her daughter, spat angrily, and slammed the door so hard that whitewash fell from the ceiling in the hallway. 3 days later, the money for the unpacked cabinets was returned after they were returned to the store. They also recouped part of the amount by selling a chest of drawers, a table, an armchair, and a TV. The losses still stung like an open wound, but now, at least, they didn't seem like a hopeless abyss. Dasha really wanted a divorce, with that easy clarity that comes after betrayal. But there was one problem. The apartment they shared was a joint venture, and the mortgage was still there. Taking rash action would have meant entering a new circle of hell with the bank, the courts, and the division of debts. So that night, when they returned home, and Ilya, looking haggard, silently placed his sturdy boots against the wall, Dasha stopped him in the hallway. "Listen carefully. I would gladly throw you out right now and file for divorce tomorrow morning.
but we share an apartment and a joint mortgage. So this isn't forgiveness, Ilya, it's a deferment. He stood with his head down like a guilty schoolboy. From tomorrow, your salary card is in my possession. Any expenses are subject to my consent. Any assistance to Marina will come only after you ask my permission. It would be better if you completely forgot how to get there. One more trick like that, and you'll be thrown out not only of your family, but also of your own cozy legend about being a good husband. Do you understand everything? Ilya nodded slowly, without frowning, without his usual insolent grin. It seemed he really understood this time. Dasha turned and headed for the kitchen. The Indian tea still went down the garbage chute, yet a jute. Some hiding places, like some illusions after betrayal, no longer work. Thank you for your attention. This was Andre Bailey. See you in new videos.